What's up, guys? It's your boy Benny. Here's the thing you're guaranteed with Tucker Carlson. He's going to ask questions that are going to make you uncomfortable, like, how are civil servants in the CIA able to afford multi-million-dollar mansions all around Washington, D.C.? The richest neighborhoods in all of America surround the Beltway, surround Washington, where all the money gets printed, and many of those houses are owned by public servants. How's that possible? These people make typically very menial salaries. How is it possible that Joe Biden has multiple beach houses when he only made $70,000 a year in the Senate for his entire life? How's that possible? It's a fine wage, but like it doesn't buy you multiple multi-million-dollar beach mansions. Where's the money come from? Tucker Carlson asking this question on a podcast, Dave Smith's podcast, where he talks about the financial corruption of the Central Intelligence Agency, saying that he knew CIA officers who were paying very, very expensive amounts for houses, multi-millions of dollars. He says he sold his house to a CIA officer for all this money. I knew exactly where Tucker Carlson lived. He lived in a very fine neighborhood, in a very posh house. In fact, Hunter Biden was his neighbor at one point, in case you're wondering what kind of corruption there was going on in that neighborhood. And so you're a federal employee. Where'd you get $4 million, $12 million? Leaving aside the assassinations and the subversion of democracy, pure financial corruption of the CIA is mind-blowing. Here we go. Tucker Carlson sounding off.
Pretty obvious. It's certainly obvious to you and your entire audience, but like the media are controlled. That's the whole point. And as soon as people sense you're not controlled or less controlled or you're out of control, they want to watch, right? I mean, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it does, like, what it represents is, right, like a real losing of that control. And for the first time, at least in my lifetime, that there isn't kind of this monopoly on the flow of information. And of course, Elon Musk buying Twitter is a big part of that. And he's going to be is already dealing with tremendous forces trying to, interfere with that. But at least for now, it does seem like, yeah, they're the two guys I usually point to are you and Joe Rogan, but between you two guys and then a whole bunch of other guys like on smaller levels, but like a lot of them, it's like, yeah, there's a whole new generation of people who are consuming their information that is not controlled. That doesn't mean it's correct all of the time. I'm sure we all make our mistakes, but it's not controlled by the CIA. Like there is a difference there.
That's exactly right. And actually, I know you know this because we've talked about it offline, but if you were to say out loud in specific terms the degree of control that specific agency, and there are many other agencies, but that one specifically, CIA, had over our public conversation and over our politics, you'd sound like a complete freaking wacko. Like people wouldn't even believe you, and yet it would be absolutely true. So I guess what I'm saying is we understate the power, and I'm speaking this from knowledge after 35 years in Washington, knowing a lot of people who work there and knowing a lot about it. We understate the power of this intel agency with an unknown budget, unknown staff, unknown reach, unknown mission. Like, it's completely out of control, like much more than people understand. It's completely out of control. And it's also completely corrupt. I was telling my wife at dinner, actually, 2 nights ago, with a bunch of relatives sitting there, we were thinking of 4 separate real estate transactions that we were personally party to or on the same street or next door to or whatever, of CIA officers, current CIA officers who are paying millions of dollars for very expensive real estate. And my wife's like, oh, what about that one? We sold our house once to a CIA officer for all this money. It's like, and the question was like, where do they get all this money? You're a federal employee. Where'd you get $4 million or $12 million? You know what I mean? Like, leaving aside the assassinations and the subversion of democracy, just the pure financial corruption of the CIA is like a mind-blowing story that the average person knows nothing about. True.
So Tucker Carlson talking a great deal there about obviously financial corruption, but also media corruption by the CIA, a topic that he has spoken about often and regularly. Tucker Carlson speaking with Adam Carolla earlier in the year, saying there's a lot of news anchors, I'm thinking of one in particular, national security reporter, who's a mouthpiece for the Pentagon and the CIA, knowingly tells lies on their behalf. This is, of course, Operation Mockingbird, if you know, you know, where the CIA admitted before Senate committee. We totally pay reporters. And yes, we have agents on the inside of all major news outlets in order to make sure that we can keep control of the narrative. Tucker Carlson saying, as somebody who worked at all the news outlets, he's seen it himself.
Take on a Wolf Blitzer type, because whenever I
take a close look at his history. Actually,
I'm always like, why would he do this? Why would he say a bunch of stuff he doesn't believe or he must know is untrue? Like, what? He sat there as this sort of elder statesman of news and just sort of lied right through COVID and many other subjects. Why would he do that? Why would he do it to his legacy?
I worked with Wolf for years, never had a problem with him. It was always nice. No one wants to hear it, and I'm sure most people won't believe it, but I can tell you, having lived it for many years, it's true. The intel agencies have a big effect on what is broadcast on television and what you see on Facebook and Google as well. I mean, they're all up and down Facebook and Google, as I'm sure you know. And, there are a lot of anchors who, including people I know well and have worked with at different networks. I'm thinking of one in particular, national security reporter, who was just a mouthpiece for the Pentagon and the CIA and is knowingly telling lies on their behalf. That's very, very common, very common. And I can think of a number of people at CNN who I know for a fact are doing that exact thing. And so, they're reading government propaganda from the intel agencies knowingly. And I'm sure they've got some internal rationale that allows them to get up in the morning and face themselves despite having done something that dishonest. But I'm just telling you, bottom line, I know that is true. I'm not speculating at all. And in particular on the national security stuff, there are very well-known national security reporters, and I'm thinking of one female national security reporter in particular, who just reads lies from the national security state. And it's wildly frustrating. And it would just make me mad. Even if I don't agree with the lies, okay, but even if I did agree with the lies, I would be offended because they're lies. They're lies. Like when CIA and the Pentagon were claiming that Bashar al-Assad used poison gas against his own people. Okay, there was no evidence that was true. Maybe it was true. There was no evidence it was true. None. Zero. And I called them out, and they could not provide any evidence. And yet every national security, and it was a big deal. We killed a lot of people in response. We sent in missiles and killed a lot of people. We took human life in response to that claim. And it was, as far as I can tell, a lie. And every national security reporter, every channel repeated it uncritically. The Biden administration blew up Nord Stream and, created the largest act of industrial sabotage in history, the largest man-made CO2 emission in history, an environmental crime. This is a huge deal. This happened. And every national security reporter just looked right into the camera and said, well, we think Russia did it. Well, they knew Russia didn't do it. That's a lie. And they knew it was a lie. So I just think, and again, I'm not speculating. I spent my life in this business, so I've seen it. People underestimate the degree to which the people sitting on the news, possibly even Wolf Blitzer, are repeating talking points from the intel agencies and doing it on purpose. It's scary, man. Really scary.
So where would they get the fake news from the intel agency? It's not like the intel agencies would make up for or even pay for their own fake news. Where do they even get the money? How is this even legal? Well, whistleblowers say that the CIA bribed scientists to claim that COVID did not come from Wuhan, even though, of course, obviously, via the spike protein and the molecular makeup and where the original outbreak occurred, it did come from the Wuhan virology laboratory. It was man-made, and it was made with your tax dollars that the CIA probably paid for through the Patriot Act, of course, and the study of biological weapons that Obama shut down, and so Dr. Fauci moved it offshore. That's how evil Dr. Fauci is. Bombshell Republican report exposes alleged virus origins cover-up by the CIA. 6 of the 7 members of the CIA COVID discovery team were given significant monetary incentives to change their position. According to the whistleblower, the CIA ultimately refused to make the formal assessment on COVID's origins, even with low confidence. So the CIA bribed and paid off scientists in order to protect their friends in communist China, in order to protect their own culpability in the creation of COVID. Now, we would know all of this if we were able to get access to the internal documents, but based on the classification system in our federal government, we will never get access to the documents, at least given the current laws and the current standards for classification. Tucker Carlson, on a newly released clip from Roseanne's new podcast, said this about the classification system that protects agencies like the CIA. It's designed in order to destroy our republic. You can't have a nation that's led by the people if the government is able to keep billions of documents worth of secrets from you. Watch.
Look, I spent my life in Washington. I spent 35 years there, from 1985 to 2020. And my father ran a federal agency, so I know how the classification system worked and still works. And it's a lie. It's a lie.
It's a complete lie.
It's a complete lie. There are over 1 billion classified documents. So how is that a democracy? If you don't know what your government is doing and you have no right to know on the basis of totally fraudulent national security claims, it's not a democracy, right? It's an oligarchy. And I believe in democracy. I think that the people own this country. It's not owned by federal unionized bureaucrats or appointees.
No.
Or the richest people. It's not just like the 27 billionaires get to run everything. I just don't agree with that.
I don't either.
I hate it, actually. And they're not even good at it. That's the other thing. They're selfish and they're stupid and they're short-sighted and they're totally lacking wisdom. So they're not even running the country well. But even if they were, I would still be opposed to it because that's a betrayal of the core promise of America.
Yeah, that's feudalism.
Completely. But at least in feudalism, there was a symbiotic relationship between the lord and the serfs. They each needed each other.
Right.
The people who run our country do not need labor.
Yeah.
Labor has no value in America. The average person has no power, no economic power. And when you take away the promise of like free elections, you don't even have political power. Your vote doesn't even matter.
No.
That's really super dark. So I'm completely opposed to it. I reject the premise of the charges. Classified. On what grounds? Oh, they're nuclear secrets. Really, which ones? They can't tell you.